Picture this. The man running the biggest sporting event in human history walks into a press conference the day before the tournament opens, sits down in front of the entire global media, and tells millions of fans who can't afford to attend his tournament to, and these are his exact words, just chill. That actually happened. June 10, 2026, Estadio Azteca, Mexico City, one day before the opening kickoff of a World Cup that Gianni Infantino himself described as the biggest event probably in the history of mankind. And when reporters asked him about ticket prices that had left ordinary fans locked out, about a Somali referee denied entry at the airport, about investigations launched by multiple state governments, about subpoenas from attorneys general, about fans who spent thousands of dollars only to find their seats weren't where they'd been promised, Infantino leaned into the microphone and delivered one of the most extraordinary performances in the history of football governance. So what exactly did he say? What did he defend? What did he dodge? And is any of it actually true? Let's go through all of it, because this story has more layers than most people realize. Let's start at the beginning, because the ticket pricing controversy didn't appear overnight. It built over months, and the numbers behind it are genuinely staggering. FIFA priced tickets for the 2026 World Cup starting at $140 for group stage matches, with regular seats for the July 19th final in New Jersey listed at up to $8,680. But that was just the beginning. Prices for the final were then raised to $10,990 and then again to $32,970. And on the secondary market, the numbers went somewhere else entirely. A single ticket in the upper deck of the final was priced at $8,860 on StubHub, while lower bowl seats were listed at up to $25,000. And on FIFA's own official resale marketplace, the get-in price for the final was $9,805. Compare that to what fans paid 4 years ago. At the Qatar World Cup in 2022, ticket prices ranged from $69 to $1,607. From a $69 entry point to a $9,805 floor for the final. That's not an adjustment to market conditions. That's a fundamental transformation in who this tournament is actually for. Group stage games in Los Angeles, the average cheapest ticket available 60 days before the tournament was $1,040 on FIFA's own resale platform. In Dallas, it was $1,028. These weren't premium seats, these were the cheapest available options. On FIFA's resale marketplace, prices soared into 4 to 6 figures. There were even tickets listed at more than $2 million. And here's the part that really crystallized the anger for a lot of fans. FIFA introduced what they called front category seats, some of which cost more than $30,000 after fees. At a tournament FIFA describes as the world's festival of football, available to anyone who loves the game, a global celebration of the beautiful sport, for $30,000 a seat. Here's where things get interesting. FIFA didn't just raise prices, they changed the entire mechanism by which prices are set. The organization used a dynamic pricing model that increased costs by an average of 34% between October and the start of the tournament. Dynamic pricing means the price you see today isn't the price you'll see tomorrow. It means demand signals get converted into higher costs in real time, and fans who hesitate even slightly find themselves priced out of seats they could have afforded a week earlier. One attorney who also teaches at the University of San Francisco described what FIFA was doing as using scare tactics to create a demand for tickets, telling fans they had to pay the high prices because if they didn't, they were going to miss out on a once-in-a-lifetime event. He said the problem is that consumers had no way of knowing whether that was true because FIFA kept information about how many tickets were left, how prices were being set, and what demand actually looked like completely hidden from buyers. Then there was the seating map confusion. Seating maps for each ticket category were often vague or misleading. At MetLife Stadium, a Category 1 ticket supposedly covered the entire lower bowl section, and fans assumed they would secure a seat close to the sideline. What they didn't know was that many of the best spots were reserved for premium seating sold separately to corporate sponsors and wealthy buyers. Fans who paid significant sums found themselves in relatively undesirable seats with corner obstructions blocking their view. And then came the detail that pushed the story from outrage into legal territory. Reports surfaced suggesting that more than 40,000 tickets abruptly vanished from FIFA's primary sales platform, and a closely matching volume then appeared on its resale marketplace at different prices. The implication being that FIFA was moving inventory between its own channels in ways that affected what fans paid and where they ended up sitting. That's when the attorneys general got involved.
The New York and Jersey attorneys general subpoenaed FIFA and launched a joint probe into its ticketing practices, saying that fans had experienced a gauntlet of confusion, fake scarcity, and impossibly high prices. New York Attorney General Letitia James said that no one should be manipulated into paying sky-high prices for seats, and that fans should be able to trust that the tickets they purchase will be the ones they receive. New Jersey Attorney General Jennifer Davenport said that FIFA had turned buying a ticket into exactly that gauntlet, all at the expense of consumers and hard-working residents. A number of other state attorneys general, including Texas, also launched investigations into the issue. Several Democratic lawmakers wrote to FIFA seeking answers about its ticket practices, and California's Attorney General sent a letter to FIFA raising concerns about reports of potentially misleading ticketing practices. So that's the context. That's what was waiting for Infantino when he sat down in front of the cameras at the Azteca on June 10. Now, this is where things change, because Infantino didn't apologize. He didn't walk anything back. He didn't announce a review or acknowledge that anything had gone wrong. Instead, he went on offense. His core argument was simple. If FIFA is doing something wrong, then probably everyone selling tickets in North America is doing something wrong. He pointed to other American sports as comparisons. He cited the NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and San Antonio Spurs, where get-in prices ranged from about $500 for the first two games in San Antonio to about $10,000 for Game 3 in New York. He pointed to the Stanley Cup Final, which had a minimum entry price of at least $600 for each of the first four games. The argument being that FIFA isn't doing anything different from what every major American sports property does. And on a narrow reading of secondary market pricing, there's something to that. American sports resale prices are notoriously volatile, and the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup do reach similar peaks. But here's the problem with that comparison. Those are secondary market prices set by individual sellers. FIFA is the one setting primary prices at $32,970. FIFA is the one raising its own official listing from $6,730 to $10,990 to $32,970 across multiple pricing windows. FIFA controls the digital platform, takes fees on every transaction, and has essentially built a revenue-maximizing mechanism that benefits from the very price escalation it publicly attributes to market forces. Infantino said the average ticket price for the tournament was below $500 and was comparable to other U.S. sports during their playoffs, a claim that, while true for resale prices, does not appear to be accurate for list prices. That's a distinction that matters enormously. The average resale price being under $500 tells you something about the full distribution of tickets across a 104-match tournament. It doesn't tell you anything about what the cheapest available ticket costs in a specific city on a specific match day. But there's another angle here that Infantino actually raised himself, and it's more interesting than most coverage gave him credit for. When pressed on whether FIFA should have set lower primary prices, Infantino argued that selling at a lower price point in the American market would simply have resulted in those tickets going to secondary markets at much higher prices, with the profits going to those who organize secondary markets or black market activities rather than to football. That's not an entirely unreasonable point. Ticket scalping is a massive industry precisely because event organizers historically underpriced their primary market inventory. If FIFA had sold final tickets at $500, a significant portion of them would have been acquired by brokers and relisted at $9,000 anyway. The issue is whether capturing that revenue for FIFA, rather than for scalpers, actually benefits the sport, or whether it just concentrates the money differently without changing the fundamental reality that ordinary fans can't afford to attend. Infantino's broader defense rested on FIFA's identity as a non-profit organization. He said that the World Cup takes place for 1 month every 4 years, and that FIFA generates its revenue in that 1 month and then spends it across the following 47 months on the development of football in 211 countries. He said the World Cup is the main and so far the only revenue-generating event for FIFA, and framed the pricing as a necessary response to that reality. Climate Central. Infantino indicated the World Cup could earn FIFA more than $11 billion, including broadcast deals. That's a record. That's more than any World Cup has ever generated, and it sits in an uncomfortable tension with the non-profit framing. A non-profit organization that generates $11 billion in a single month-long event, that raised final ticket prices 3 times, that runs a resale platform taking 15% from every transaction, that introduced front category seats at over $30,000, is making choices about who can participate in the global game at its highest level. FIFA offered $60 tickets to national federations for their regular supporters after initial complaints about pricing. Infantino said 130,000 tickets were offered at that price, but out of 6 to 7 million total tickets for the tournament, 130,000 is less than 2% of the total allocation. The number of $60 tickets for each individual game was likely to be in the hundreds rather than thousands. That's not a meaningful concession to accessibility, it's the appearance of one. ESPN. Infantino welcomed every investigation, saying FIFA was very relaxed about the scrutiny, that they had checked their practices with the best lawyers before selling tickets and were happy to present everything and make their case. That confidence either reflects genuine legal certainty that FIFA's practices are defensible, or it reflects an institution that has spent decades operating in spaces where accountability has rarely materialized in ways that change behavior. ESPN. Legal experts say FIFA could face class action lawsuits from aggrieved fans that could keep the organization busy long after the tournament ends. Whether those lawsuits succeed, whether the Attorney General investigations result in penalties, whether the subpoenas produce any meaningful change, those questions won't be answered during this World Cup. They'll play out in courts and legal proceedings that extend well into the future. What will play out during this tournament is the visible consequence of everything described above. Due to the extreme ticket prices, there's concern matches could be more sparsely attended than expected. The visible clusters of empty seats that appeared in broadcasts of some group stage matches aren't just an optics problem for FIFA. They're the direct physical result of pricing decisions that determined who could and couldn't be there. All Africa. One economist framed the core tension clearly. There is a point at which revenue maximization can undermine the cultural value of the event. The World Cup is not perceived by fans as just another luxury product. It has a public, cultural, and national meaning. When the pricing of an event with that kind of meaning reaches the point where governments issue subpoenas and attorneys general describe the sales process as a gauntlet of confusion and fake scarcity, the question isn't just whether FIFA did anything legally wrong. The question is what kind of institution FIFA wants to be and who it believes the World Cup actually belongs to. Infantino's press conference on June 10th gave a clear answer to that question, even if it wasn't the answer he intended to give. He defended the prices, he welcomed the investigations, he compared FIFA's practices to the NBA, he told fans to chill, and he kept an empty chair at the press conference for a jailed journalist, a gesture that was genuinely moving in isolation, but that sat in strange contrast with everything else happening in the same room. One analyst summarized the situation with a precision that's hard to argue with. When you promote an event as being like 104 Super Bowls and price it accordingly, you're making a statement about what the World Cup is and who it's for. The football on the pitch is as beautiful as it's ever been, but the story off it is one that will outlast this tournament by years. What do you think? Was Infantino right that FIFA had no choice but to adapt to the North American market? Or do you think the pricing decisions crossed a line that a non-profit organization running the world's game should never have approached? And do you think the investigations from the attorneys general will actually change anything? Or will FIFA walk away from this tournament with $11 billion and no lasting consequences? Let us know in the comments below.
Like and subscribe if you want to follow this story as it continues to develop, and share this with a football fan who deserves to know exactly what happened in that press conference on June 10th.